Let's be clear. Benny Johnson's right. He's a violent psychopath who is hell-bent on attacking federal law enforcement.
So I think, honestly, with all due respect, calling this man who was killed over the weekend a psychopath just based on that is really, I just think, outrageous and wrong.
Look, what we saw.
Are you a psychopath too, Nira?
No.
In this video, you are going to see one of the most disgusting attempts to justify a state-sanctioned killing I have ever seen on cable news. We're going to look at a segment where a MAGA commentator tries to convince a panel, including Dr. Cornel West, that a man deserved to die because of a video from 2 weeks ago. First, I want you to watch the setup. CNN plays the footage and reads a tweet from right-wing influencer Benny Johnson. Watch this setup, and then I need to pause it because there is a very dark, very stupid logic game being played here that we need to expose.
A newly surfaced video shows Alex Preddy getting into a physical clash with federal agents 11 days before he was fatally shot. The family has confirmed to CNN that the man that you see in this video that was released by the outlet The News Movement is, in fact, Pretti. He is seen shouting at agents before kicking at their vehicle's taillights. The agents then stop, exit their vehicle, and tackle Pretti to the ground. A struggle ensues, but a few minutes later, Pretti gets up, and a gun appears to be tucked into his waistband. Now, it's unclear if the agents noticed it in this altercation, but the agents ended the confrontation there and decided to walk away. Now, again, we don't know what took place immediately before this footage. Another video recorded by a local attorney shows more of the aftermath, including the agents turning around and leaving before deploying some type of smoke device at the protesters who were gathered there. Now, the attorney also captured this brief interaction that he had with Pretti.
You okay? You okay? You okay?
I'm okay, I'm okay. Are we all okay? Are we all safe? We okay?
But this new footage is intensifying an already heated debate in this country about ICE's presence on American streets. MAGA influencer Benny Johnson says the new video destroys a leftist hoax. He argues it proves Pretti was not an innocent bystander or legal observer. Instead, he was, quote, a violent agitator and a psychopath hell-bent on attacking federal law enforcement. And I think the question, though, in response to that is, does that have any bearing on what happened to him 11 days later?
Well, stop right there. I want to jump in before Joe Borelli even opens his mouth, because you need to understand the trick being pulled here. MAGA pundits are desperately trying to justify Pretty's murder based on that incident you just saw, something that happened 2 weeks prior to the shooting. Think about what that actually implies. They won't say this part out loud, but for that argument to be true, for that video to be a justification for his death, it would mean the ICE agents recognized him from 11 days ago, held a grudge, and decided to execute him on sight. That is not law enforcement. That is a mob hit. That is wholly unprofessional and criminal. They know they can't say that on TV. So instead, they just float the video and allow their base, who are often angry, vengeful, and not looking for logic, to draw that conclusion themselves. That is exactly what Benny Johnson did in that tweet. The idea that you deserve to be murdered today for kicking a plastic taillight 2 weeks ago is laughable. It is moronic. But that is what MAGA wants you to think, because deep down, that is what they think. Now watch as Joe Borelli walks right into this trap, and watch how the panel handle him.
Let's be clear. Benny Johnson's right. He's a violent psychopath who is hell-bent on attacking federal law enforcement. We just saw that on video. I mean, he clearly spit at the law enforcement officer. He clearly was doing some sort of jujitsu kicks against the vehicle, which, resulted in the vehicle being smashed and broken. And I think I just want to point out, as someone who does believe in the Second Amendment, and there was so much made about his firearm, responsible gun owners in the concealed carry community, in the gun community, no one who's a responsible gun owner provokes and escalates a fight. That is rule number one if you're going to carry a firearm, is that you automatically lose every fight. You walk away, you don't escalate situations, less not with law enforcement or with anyone else. He is someone who acted wildly irresponsible. Now, fast forward 11 days. He did not. Same video. That was the same concept. The video shows he did not pull a weapon at the time he was shot. So I do, commend DHS for putting these officers on modified duty. I think there needs to be an investigation of what happened. You're not supposed to get shot by police, right? That's not supposed to happen. And clearly there was some incident or some trigger, some cause that caused these officers to fire. And there should be an investigation. But the media narrative about this guy, that he was the second coming of the Lord and he was just this peaceful guy, that's disproven by that video and Betty Johnson's
I think it's outrageous, honestly, that you just called this man a psychopath. You don't know what happened before this incident. We saw him kicking a taillight. The officers respond by looking like they do beat kind of the crap out of him onto the ground. And then what happens 8 days later is completely separate from what happens here. So I think, honestly, with all due respect, calling this man who was killed over the weekend a psychopath just based on that is really, I just think, outrageous and wrong.
Look, what we saw.
You a psychopath too, Nira.
No,
Well, then you'd be wrong about that too.
And listen, the descriptions we have gotten about Alex Preddy have not been a media narrative. It's been people who interacted with him. It's been people who were his colleagues, who were his patients, who were the children of his patients. Everything we've seen about him is different from this.
Protester? Is it
He
fair
wasn't
to
a
describe
peaceful.
him as
He
a
was not a
peaceful
peaceful protester in the first video we saw. I think that was wrong. I'm against all violence. I think that's destruction of federal property, and that was wrong. He could have been arrested. Maybe he should have been, and he wouldn't have been killed 11 days later. But let's take the two incidents separate and apart, because they are separate and apart. The first video we saw, Alex Preddy acted wrong. The second video we saw, he was a peaceful observer who never brandished a gun, who did not act like a domestic terrorist, who acted nothing like a psychopath. He was brandishing a phone.
Are you allowed to interfere with law enforcement? I'm not saying if he would have stood on the sidewalk with a sign or with a camera, he would not be dead right now. But that's not what he did.
Listen,
number
one, I don't see him as having. He was standing in the
Yeah,
middle of the street with car and directing traffic.
Joe,
he was not. But listen,
what was it about his conduct that you think was illegal or whatever it was? I mean, he was standing in the streets, and maybe he was jaywalking.
In close proximity, in contact with a law enforcement.
But is he allowed to record what law enforcement is doing?
Yeah, from a safe distance. You're not allowed to
okay.
actually
So based on the video that you saw, was he at a safe distance?
No.
Yes, he was. They
Yes,
walked up
well,
to him.
yeah, I
They
don't
walked
think
up
so,
to him.
Yeah, so
he wasn't a safe
the video that I've
distance.
seen,
And he should have complied.
He actually was not even the person that they were interacting with at first. Hold on, Joe.
I stipulate the point that he shouldn't have died.
Listen, I'm just saying, I think to Anna's point, we have to take incident by incident, one thing and another thing. The incident where he actually lost his life, it's a real question. Was he doing something that was illegal? And it's not clear that he was. In fact, the federal agents there were not even after him. They were after the woman who was also there. And when he stepped in front of her to help her up, that's when he interacted with law enforcement for the first time. So let me just say here, just kind of in response to you, this is what another perspective is from a conservative perspective. Eric Erickson says, guys, Alex Preddy was clearly an activist agitator in this clip. He was also disarmed by Border Patrol agents that killed him. The team sport insistence on dragging the dead man is kind of gross at this point. I understand pushing back against a narrative, but let the dead lie. That's his perspective. Scott?
Yeah, look, I think the video that we've seen adds context to what he was probably doing over a period of time. I think the narrative has been that he was just an innocent protester or some sort of an observer. It's obvious he was part of some organized effort to show up where federal law enforcement was and engage in some way, whether that engagement was recording or blowing whistles or whatever, or in the video's case, kicking in the taillight of a car. He was obviously there to do something. That doesn't supersede the need to have an investigation of the shooting. I support an investigation of the shooting. I will say, I think the investigation needs to be holistic, and I care more about just the shooting. I care about where did Alex Preddy come from? What part of it, what group was he in? Was he part of any kind of a training organization? I mean, I think what's going on in Minneapolis is more than just random people showing up to protest. I believe, and there's lots of evidence about this, that there are well-organized, well-trained, and well-funded agitators who are showing up with the purpose of provoking these kinds of incidents so that they can then create the narrative that somehow ICE is out of control.
No, but I
Did you catch the pivot? First, we had Borelli trying the psychopath strategy. Now, Scott Jennings is tagging in with the conspiracy strategy. He is frantically trying to paint these protesters as well-funded, well-trained agitators sent to frame ICE. But here is the crazy part about this argument. Even if everything Jennings just said is true, so what? Even if Pretti was part of a sophisticated protest movement, last time I checked, political organizing is perfectly legal under US law. None of that justifies the actions of the 2 ICE agents who shot him dead. But this is how MAGA logic works. They pretend that if they can label you an agitator or a member of a group, it somehow creates a permission structure for the state to kill you. They act as if exercising your First Amendment rights makes you a valid target for lethal force. Dr. Cornel West isn't buying it. He doesn't see a conspiracy. He sees citizens exercising their rights. Watch him shut this down.
where you see professional agitators, I see courageous citizens who have a righteous indignation and a moral outrage when their city, and this is Prince's city now, you know, it's sign of the times, 1987, when it's being terrorized, it's being traumatized, communities are being vilified and demonized. Now, I come from a people who have been demonized and vilified and terrorized for 250 years in the American experiment. That's what it is to niggerize a dignified black people. Make sure that they are intimidated, terrified, full of fear, and not able to straighten their backs up. But thank God the Black Freedom Movement straightens our backs up. Well, what we're witnessing, and this is why the larger picture is important here, we're at a we're right on the edge cliff in terms of the possibility of America sustaining itself as a social experiment in the best sense of just becoming an empire full of might and force. So when you niggerize a whole country, you start treating all of your citizens the way black folk have been treated for 250 years. So when I see the police killing these two precious folks, Sister Renee and my dear brother Alex, and I've had so many partners killed by the police growing up on the chocolate side of town, right? What has been the response? Thank God for Martin King. How do we learn how to love in the face of this hatred? How do we learn how to fight for freedom for everybody in all parts of town in the face of all of this terror? And America now has the blues. If you don't learn something from the best of the blues people, we're going to lose the democracy. So this is not just about meticulous details. We're talking about something huge at stake.
It does seem that
You just witnessed the full collapse of the right-wing argument in real time. Think about what we just saw. First, Joe Borelli tried to claim that because the victim kicked a taillight 2 weeks ago, he was a psychopath who deserved to die. The panel rejected that. Then, Scott Jennings tried to claim that because the victim was part of an organized movement, he was a dangerous agitator. But as we noted, political organizing is perfectly legal in this country. The panel rejected that too. This was a masterclass in exposing MAGA logic. They threw everything at the wall: character assassination, conspiracy theories, fear-mongering, all to avoid admitting one simple truth. Government agents killed a citizen and they don't have a good reason why. The panel's collective refusal to accept these excuses, from Neera Tanden's shock to Cornel West's moral clarity, shows that this rhetorical game is losing its power. You can call people names and you can spin spy novels, but you cannot explain away a body. What did you think of the panel's pushback? Did Jennings' conspiracy theory make any sense to you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more breakdowns exposing these tactics, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks for watching.